me ask you a question. Why would you be the world's worst astronaut when you could be the best architect? Why give your kid a stupid participation trophy? And what the hell is all this shit about toxic ideology? What I want to talk about today is the before mentioned topics, but I want to explain and extrapolate what I mean by that. Starting with why be the world's worst astronaut when you can be the best architect? People in our current society and culture don't seem to want to play to their own strengths. What I mean is, yes, maybe if you do work super, super hard all the time and struggle 24/7, you might make it to be an astronaut, but you're not going to be good at it. You're probably not going to be happy because you're not good at your job, and you're under constant stress because you might be fired because you're the worst. And you're also not going to make as much money because, again, you suck at being an astronaut. But in this scenario, if you would have taken all that time, effort, and energy into something you're naturally gifted at, say an architect, you could be the world's best. You're going to be happy because the job comes while you're struggling. It's easy for you by comparison. You're going to make money and you're going to have prestige because you're the best at something. Don't sit there and think that you have to be a doctor or a lawyer just because society tells you that you have to have this prestigious job. Brings me into a lot of people think that you shouldn't tell your children that they can be anything, and you shouldn't give them participation trophies because it makes them weak. It's lying to them. And I think that's both untrue and true in the sense that when you have an adult child, 16, 18, you can't sit there and tell them that they can be anything. And giving them a participation trophy just ruins the whole point of the game because they can't be anything. They won't have the skills to be whatever they want to be. So you're lying to them. When they find out, they're going to be devastated. And giving them a participation trophy ruins the game. It ruins the point of competition. It ruins your drive to be better than somebody else. But on the opposite side of that, if you did that to a young child, it would devastate them even worse because reality crash is hard and it's going to be much harder on a young child. A participation trophy can be a really good thing for someone who doesn't want to show up. They don't know what it is to work hard because they're 5 years old. And when you are 5, you could be anything. Your skill set hasn't shown yet. You haven't matured into yourself. But you can have certain things instilled into you that if you work hard, your dreams can come true. So by saying don't give participation trophies and stuff, but also in the same token, by giving them out, it's toxic. It's bad for not just the people involved, but also society as a whole. You raise bad children who are nasty and miserable because what they were promised doesn't come true. It's not just raising kids that can have toxic ideologies on either extreme. Talk about health and fitness. You have someone who is grossly overweight. When I say grossly, I don't mean disgusting. I mean by a wide margin. They're overweight and they think to themselves that they're attractive, that they're sexy, and that they're healthy. And they're not. And it's a lie to sit there and tell yourself it is. But the same thing, we all can agree to that. But at the same token, a lot of us don't agree that the opposite is true. When you're underweight and you're not eating enough food or you're over-exercising, it's just as unhealthy. Just like being 350 pounds of fat is bad for you, being 350 pounds of muscle is just as bad. That's why these power lifters die of the same things that people who are obese are. Same thing, you have women who have to find this ideal body type, and it's 0% body fat. It's this certain number of a waistline that is just unrealistic for that person. It might be realistic for others, but not for you. And you shouldn't have to try to conform to that. It's so toxic, so bad, not just for your health, but for your emotional well-being as well. And I know that it's some men that force this ideology on women, but it's not just them. It's a lot of women too. They brag about how skinny they are, and they chide their overweight friends because they're not as skinny, and they say, you're not going to find a man, you're not attractive, and they tease and really hurt the emotions of these people. And that could be massively detrimental, forcing them to swing to the opposite side of either obesity or forcing them into um, throwing up everything they eat or not eating at all. Again, super, super toxic, really bad. This isn't the only thing that women can do to each other, though. With the feminist movement, originally a really good, solid, positive social drive and change, but it's become something where women feel obligated to compete in fields where they have no interest in competing, where they think, oh, I have to go get a job in the construction site so I can represent women, or I have to not raise a family and have as much sex as possible and get these abortions, when that's not what they want out of their life. Don't misunderstand. I'm not shaming people who want to do that. I may not agree with you on a religious aspect on those two things, but I would never enforce my Christian ideology onto you. I'd be happy to talk to you, but I'll never force that because that's toxic. The same thing, I've seen families force or try to encourage to such a toxic degree. Find a husband, raise a family, cook dinner, be a good wife, be quiet. And that's super bad too, because if a woman wants to have a job and wants to compete in a male-driven environment, they should absolutely run to it and do it. If you don't want to raise a family, don't. It's that simple. If you do, but don't tease each other and force and put each other down just because someone disagrees with you. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not just women who are guilty of negative attitudes and toxic ideologies at all. Men are just as guilty, if not sometimes worse. Oftentimes, though, we are more into harming ourselves than others, with some notable exceptions of spousal abuse, which is absolutely terrible and definitely toxic immediately. There is no excuse for that. But men have this ideology of never showing any emotion, just keeping it bottled up right here. I'll bottle up all my emotions and hopefully one day I'll die with all of this emotions. And then they keel over at 40 years old of a heart attack because they never once showed any emotion. Or they don't go to the hospital. I'm guilty of that when I really should have. I was working way too many hours, again, trying to be a masculine man, working as much as humanly possible, working 32 hours straight, on 4 hours of sleep, doing that 6 days a week. And I got sick. Of course I got sick. Nobody can do that. And that cold turned into pneumonia. And I almost died. Almost maybe an exaggeration. Luckily, I had my future wife and my best friend, who's a female, to sit there and tell me, stop being a fucking man, go to the hospital, call the doctor. And I listened to them, and you know what? They were right. $200, and 2 days later, I was in perfect health again. All it took was a break. Thank God I had strong female people around me to tell me to do that. And thank God I'm able to show emotions around my wife. I can feel. I don't keep it all bottled up. I have depression and stuff, and I can talk to her about that. And that's okay. Yes, as a man, you should be a strong role model who doesn't break apart at the first sign of trouble. But you don't need to be afraid to show some emotion sometimes. At the same token, yeah, as a man, you probably shouldn't go to the doctor every time you cough. But in the same token, when you're sick, you need to get yourself taken care of. And it's so self-destructive, and it's so overtly bad, and no men seem to want to change that idea of masculinity men. And we have to control the relationship. I've heard a lot of male friends of mine think that they have to be the only breadwinner. They have to be in control of all the finances. I'm awful with money. I can't handle $1. If I have $1, I'll spend $3. So I give my money to my wife. She handles all the bills, and it works out great because she happens to be gifted with handling money. And I'm happy, and I'm healthy, and I feel like I'm a really good, strong man. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you want to be toxic and keel over at 40. Maybe you think that you should be 90 pounds or 400 pounds of muscle. But you're going to die. You're going to die of a heart attack. You're going to die of stress. Best case scenario, you're going to be absolutely miserable your entire life. So in closing, what I want to say, don't be toxic. Don't be hateful. Just be happy. Anyway, guys, stay safe. If you can't do that, have fun. End of video.